Hi everyone, it's Nurse Kathy. It's time for 5 on Fridays. This Saturday is National Kindness Day, so I asked our friend Rashad Davis from Columbus EAP to spend some time with us today to discuss the topic of bullying. So let's listen.
Hi, Rashad. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Kathy.
Saturday is World Kindness Day, and it's really unfortunate that we have to address the topic of bullying. So no one's immune from bullying or the threat of bullying. What's the prevalence of bullying with our youth, our teenagers, and our adult population?
Yeah, so interestingly, all bullying, regardless of the age group or environment, really will start with some form of aggression, right? And more often than not, aggression is used synonymously with violence. But really, aggression is defined as any behavior by an individual or individuals that is really intended to cause physical or psychological harm. So we really want to focus in on that operative word of intent, right? So they're intending to cause this physical and psychological harm with their behaviors. And the physical aggression, again, regardless of the age group or the environment, is described as the use of physical force against someone that may lead to physical or psychological harm. And so that could mean beating, kicking, slapping, pushing, biting, or even pinching, right? And the verbal aggression comprises of all forms of verbal abuse. So that looks like insults, intimidation, swearing, or just derogatory language, right? And this could be associated with someone's sexual orientation, and there are other examples that we could mention. But all of these examples are indicators that a bullying situation is occurring and definitely would require immediate action steps to find some resolution to it.
So what type of satisfaction does someone get from bullying another person?
So a lot of times, and again, more often than not, what you're going to see is someone wants to assert their presence, their power, or dominion over a person, right? And so essentially, what they want to do is they want to show that this person is in a vulnerable state and they are susceptible to that bullying behavior. A lot of these aggressive behaviors are intended to facilitate a bullying campaign, and so that's going to be, several behaviors on several different occurrences, right? They may be subtle and confusing, or it can involve direct and obvious behavior which tests the waters just to see how a potential target may react. And again, sometimes this can just be for that person's satisfaction. They want to know, will the target respond confidently, comfortably, or somewhere in between? They also want to know to what degree will the target successfully send back a very clear message that they are neither intimidated nor confused, and that they know how to take care of themselves. So someone exhibiting these aggressive behaviors only has one aim in mind, and that's to see how their target is going to react to them.
Well, how do they choose that target though? I mean, is there a certain characteristic they're looking at their victim so they can target that person?
Yeah, I would definitely say that the one thing that sets someone apart from all of the rest is their vulnerability. So let's just say, for instance, a person is maybe younger than the rest of the people in their vicinity. If they are going through some life changes that have them in a very vulnerable state, so they're not necessarily as acutely aware of certain aggressive behaviors as they would have been before. If a person exhibiting these behaviors is throwing out innuendo, and these innuendos seem to be accepted as just normal behavior, then this person who's exhibiting these behaviors will definitely pounce on that target. So it can look different for a lot of different scenarios, but they're looking for that vulnerability. So when we're talking about kiddos, this may be the new kid at school. This may be the kid who's already being picked on in several different areas, or this may be the kid who just can't necessarily catch up and be attentive in class. So all those different scenarios just really make for a very vulnerable environment for that child, and that child is going to be an easy target.
What about adults in the workplace?
Yeah, so if a person at work is experiencing some of these behaviors, it's probably one of those situations where, again, this person exhibiting these behaviors is wanting to assert their power or dominion over the person that they've targeted. And so a lot of times this looks like a manager, a supervisor. It could be a cultural differential, right, where you have someone who feels like they can make the claim that this person is being culturally discriminatory. And so they'll use that claim to target them. And then again, that bullying campaign will start with some of those aggressive behaviors. More often than not in the workplace, it'll be verbal aggression. So again, it might be someone that may be new. It could be a male-female dynamic, but it's all about power. So in any one of these scenarios, it's about asserting one's power and asserting one's dominion. The interesting thing here is it's not necessarily the person per se that is, something that's attracting this person or this aggressive person to the target. So it's really about the person who's exhibiting these behaviors. This person has some interpersonal deficit that they're trying to fulfill by asserting their power and their dominion over their vulnerable target.
Well, what about social media and bullying?
So with social media, it's a little different, right? Because you can't necessarily assert yourself physically over social media. And so a lot of times what you'll see is that verbal aggression, and that will come out in insults. Again, that verbal intimidation, they may use some vernacular that isn't necessarily appropriate in those interactions. They could be using derogatory language. And again, this is going to look like someone targeting their sexual orientation, someone who may seem to be very vulnerable and a victim of they could be going through grief. They could have experienced a recent loss of a family member or a friend. They could be really expressing themselves on social media. And again, this person wanting to assert their power and wanting to assert their dominion over that person. But this is a little tricky because in most cases when it comes to social media, that person just wants to entertain themselves. So if they find someone that's vulnerable, if they find someone that will internalize this verbal aggression, they will double down. They will double down and they will keep going. So it's going to be very, very important for someone who is experiencing that or that sees that to shut it down right away and assert themselves in a way that that person knows they can take care of themselves even over that social media platform.
What about so many of our children that are on social media now? What does a parent do?
So this is a really, really great question. I advocate for parents to do role playing with their children as a part of the safety plan. I feel like all parents should have a safety plan with their children. Their children should have a voice in creating that safety plan. This safety plan could include any kind of physical aggression and verbal aggression that they may experience at school, and this can include whatever kind of verbal aggression they may experience as they navigate their social media platforms. Role playing is going to be really, really productive. So you want to role play scenarios and responses with the kiddos because this does a couple things. So this is going to help the child's self-esteem, which means it will reduce the likelihood that they could be a target for someone who's exhibiting these aggressive behaviors. It's also going to reinforce their self-confidence. So they'll be more likely to assert themselves if this starts happening to them in the moment. Parents can make this really fun. The children will feel empowered by the parents because the parents are showing that they trust their child to take care of themselves in those particular scenarios, should they arise either at school, in the neighborhood, on the playground, so on and so forth. So it's all about empowering the child to know exactly what to do in the moment, and role play is a really great tool to make that happen and facilitate that.
Oh, that's great. That's great information. What about how bullying has affected the rate of suicide?
So what we know is that if there is a bullying situation that is occurring, a person is more likely to have thoughts of suicide, to experience suicidal ideation. They are also more likely to complete successful suicide. And so the data is going to change from week to week, month to month, year to year. But what we do know is that when there are bullying campaigns going on between two individuals, when there are aggressive behaviors that are being exhibited from one individual to another, victims of these behaviors are definitely more likely to experience poor mental health, and that includes suicidal ideation, that includes self-harm, that includes successful suicide. And so again, that is why it's so very important that we identify the red flags right away and that we find resolution for these situations right away. And the reason why this is so important is because what you'll find is a bullying campaign can start with those aggressive behaviors, and the bullying campaign can go on for extended periods of time, which means this victim is experiencing aggressive behaviors over an extended period of time. We can talk about months or years of this. And so I always advocate, even for in the workplace, and it doesn't have to be isolated to parents and children, but even in the workplace, managers can really do their staff a great justice by going through role play scenarios and responses for those types of behaviors in the workplace so staff know exactly what to do, and then that way they don't have to always look to their supervisor or manager to address those situations. They can do so for themselves in the moment when it's happening.
This has been great information, Rashad. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing all this information. Once again, thank you so much. You're always so informative.
Thank you, Kathy, for having me, and I look forward to next time.
Okay, that's
All right.
great. All right, take care.
Take care.
Well, thanks to our friend Rashad Davis from Columbus EAP. Kindness doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Kindness can be a very simple act. Kindness is free. It doesn't cost a thing. But the value of kindness is priceless. So kindness begets kindness. So let's all remember that, not just for this Saturday, but every day of the year. That's all for me. Have a great day, great weekend, and watch for our Lunch and Learn on diabetes that's going to be happening real soon.